Hey guys, I'm Rex, and this is my review of Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. It released in 1964, and if you don't know, basically on this channel, I am currently trying to review every Godzilla movie in a completely biased way. So I'm not really here to give like a 1 through 10, although I mean I still might from time to time. But I'm just here to talk about Godzilla movies. It's my favorite franchise like of all time. So I'm going through them in release order. And we're at Ghidorah, the three-headed monster in 1964. This is directly after Mothra versus Godzilla. So I was really curious about this because they both released the same year. So Mothra versus Godzilla released April 29th, and Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, released December 20th. So, and it was the same team. They finished Mothra versus Godzilla and immediately rushed into production for Ghidorah and or Ghidorah. But I've always wondered how to pronounce it. By the way, apparently the American version of this film was called Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. So that's why, like, I always wondered why I had heard Ghidorah and Ghidorah. It turns out that when I was a child, I heard Ghidorah because I saw the American version or VHS or something, and then I think in Japan it's pronounced Ghidorah, but I think it's a hard O, like Ghidorah, not Ghidorah. But anyway, I get really hung up on pronunciation, which is why you won't see me trying to say the actors' names a lot in this film. But anyway, I was super curious about the budget for it. It had a typical budget. It looks pretty good. You can tell they had to reuse some things. They reused Godzilla's suit, but there's a new head on it that I thought looked good. I thought it looked better, actually, than the previous one. The destruction was pretty good. There's like a big focus on the human story in this movie as well, which, you know, I kind of think makes sense because they probably didn't have as much time to work on sets and stuff like this. I believe another movie for Toho was like delayed and they needed to push out Ghidorah faster, so that's one of the reasons why it was rushed. And it was rushed. It was the same team, and they were on like an extremely tight schedule. Its reception was pretty good. It was commercially successful. It was one of the highest grossing films of 1964 and 1965. It sits on Rotten Tomatoes at a 77% from critic reviews, which is only 13, so it's not that many, and 59% from viewers with over 1,000 ratings. I'm actually kind of surprised by that. I'm a little bit surprised by the 59% rating because I thought this film was pretty good. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna go into it. Let me just make sure my lock doesn't go on. So as always, I got my notes here that I take while I'm watching the movie. Anyway, here we go. So our main characters we're introduced to pretty quickly is, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce anything, but Naoko, the reporter. So she's I think she works for like a TV station. This is like a really common theme in Godzilla films, that the main characters either work for a TV station or like a newspaper. Which, that's cool. Throwback to the OG. But I think she works for a TV show, and they're trying to like come up with like ideas for like some mystery, great mysteries of the universe type science fiction news show or something. I never really got a totally clear picture, but I think that's basically what she works for. And so she kind of goes out like a reporter to get scoops for this TV show. Her brother's a cop. I think his name is Shindo, and we follow him quite a bit as he's assigned to protect another one of our main characters, which is the princess of like some small island. I don't know if it's a real island or not, but we'll get to her in a minute. So he gets assigned to be a bodyguard for a princess. And then you have a professor named Murai, Murai, M-U-R-A-I, Murai, I think. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but he ends up leading a team to investigate a meteorite that falls. So we're introduced to these characters pretty quick. But I want to start with the intro to the film because the intro to this film is actually iconic for me, which I say that all the time, that this is iconic or that's iconic. And it's not an exaggeration. Like, so many of these scenes in these films are iconic to me. But, so far, like I've reviewed, Gojira, I've reviewed Godzilla Raids Again, Godzilla versus King Kong, or King Kong versus Godzilla, Mothra versus Godzilla, and out of those, 4 films, Mothra versus Godzilla is the one that I remember the most. But even though I watched it a lot as a kid, I never really liked it that much. Like, I wasn't addicted to Godzilla versus Mothra the way that I was to other films. This was definitely a film I liked more. And I think that, and I talked about this in the previous film, and I'm definitely not trying to, shit on Mothra, but I just never really, as a kid, I didn't buy into Mothra, at least not in the first film. So this film, it continues, the trend that was set with Godzilla Raids Again, the second film in the franchise. It was a monster versus monster film with Godzilla and Anguirus, which I almost forgot that. But since then, it's been Godzilla Anguirus, Godzilla Kong, Godzilla Mothra. And now we have like a big like monster mashup with Godzilla, Rodan, Mothra, and King Ghidorah. And I actually think, I'll tell you up front, I think this is a really good movie. I was impressed with it. I enjoyed it a lot more than some of the more recent movies. It's hard to say for sure, but I think I've enjoyed this one probably so far the most since the original Gojira. And I think the reason for that is I felt like the human plot was it was easy to follow. It was interesting. It's goofy, as they kind of all are. They're all a little bit goofy. At times the translation's weird. There's a lot of weird cuts, but I actually think the filming here is some of the better filming. I did not notice as many awkward, out of place cuts in this film as I had been noticing in the last 2 or 3 Godzilla films that I've reviewed. I feel like the human story here, following some interesting characters. There's some returning characters from other Godzilla films that I recognized. I can't go into all that, but I think we see Serizawa return as like the basically like the police chief or whatever. He's the brother's boss, I think. And some other characters whose names I don't know, but I recognize them from other movies, which is super cool. But I really like this movie, and I felt like the human plot, it was just as, it was just as ludicrous as some of the other ones, as all the other ones pretty much. But it was easy to follow. I felt like it was like cohesive. I felt like it was shot well. It was kind of fun at times. It was funny at times. And I feel like there was more of a focus on this, and it was a little bit of a higher priority in this film because of their tight schedule and having such a short time to film this in. They probably did not have enough time to work on a ton of like destruction and like monster sets, and they probably didn't have a lot of time to like reshoot like fights and stuff. So you actually, if anything, with like awkward cutaways and something that left you wanting more, it probably was the monsters in this movie and the monster fights in this movie. But I think that for the time that they were given, they really took advantage of it. I mean, I think that this had some of the most fun moments with like monster fights that we've had so far. Even though they weren't long. I think when you finally get to the final battle with Godzilla and Rodan and Ghidorah and Mothra, I think the film had like 13 minutes left by the time they finally were gonna like butt heads. So it's not that long, and the film's like an hour and like 33 minutes or something like that. So you don't get a lot of monsters, but I think that the reason why that didn't bother me more is because, one, I kind of found the human story interesting. Not always, for the best reasons. But the other thing is that like the monster interactions and the monster fights were pretty fun. I think they were pretty good. I don't feel like they wasted a lot of time, and the tight run time, basically 90 minutes. I think it served its purpose. So I was actually really enjoyed this a lot. This is also when we kind of get into our UFO and aliens arc, which I don't think we've had that yet here in Godzilla. I think this is the first one. I mean, I don't think there were any aliens in Mothra versus Godzilla. You just got those little twins, which were getting on my fucking nerves in the last movie with all their songs, and they're fucking back. They're back. And it's not the end of the world. I some people might not like that I'm kind of shitting on the twins, but man, like the twins just they got on my nerves in the last movie. I don't know what else to tell you. And then they're back, and they had some scenes in this one that were really funny too. But overall, I liked this film a lot, and like I said, this is the first one I believe where we have aliens and UFOs being a part of the plot and being used to introduce monsters. Whereas previously, I think they've all been dinosaurs and nuclear testing and stuff like that, and animals on Earth. So I think King Ghidorah is our first space monster, and I think we get our first UFO alien kind of arc here. And I think that I'm not sure what movie is next. I'll look at the end of this review, but I know if I remember correctly from being a kid, I think we go a couple of movies straight with aliens, like an obsession with stories involving aliens, which I think that was just kind of going on generally with cinema in the late 60s and early 70s. I could be wrong. It's not like I was alive then, but I think that. I'm just making that up, honestly. But I think it's true. So I don't know. You can look it up and let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. I'm going to go through the plot here, and I'm going to try to be a little bit quicker than I have been previously. I know these videos have been super long, but honestly, it is what it is. Yes, this movie had a very iconic opening. You have the one of the signature Godzilla songs plays. I don't know the name of it, but it's one of those orchestral da 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 da. You know what I'm saying? You know what song? So they're playing one of those iconic pieces of music, and they have these cuts to parts of the fights in the movie, which it was a strange decision to show the monsters up front in the opening of the film, in the opening credits, but they have these brief moments where they'll show some text, or they'll show a brief 3-4 seconds of a fight scene, or one of the monsters, Rodan fighting somebody, Godzilla fighting somebody, and it's all from the movie, but it'll highlight one of the monsters in the middle of battle for 2-3 seconds, then freeze, and then you'll get some text. It's in Japanese. I watched it in Japanese with English subtitles, but I thought the intro was great. It really, really stuck with me. But I also can't help but think, damn, you kind of showed a lot up front. I think part of the appeal of Godzilla movies, and I know this was something that Gareth Edwards seemed to heavily believe in as well, which we'll get to that eventually. But part of it is not showing your hand too early. The tease and the tension and the build up to the monsters emerging, because at the end of the day, I mean, they're still in suits, they're still on these mini sets. It's no matter what you do, especially now that we're out of black and white, and a lot of these fights are happening during the day. It's going to look goofy. So you kind of want to milk it as much as you can milk it, because when they finally get up there and start fighting, no matter what you do, you can do your best with angles and cinematography and stuff, but it's going to look kind of goofy. So showing them in the opening credits, that just always stood out to me as a kid. As soon as I saw the opening for this, and I heard that music, and I saw them start to show that intro, I remembered it just like I was 10 years old again, man. It was crazy. Anyway, so the opening is some people on a roof, and it looks like they are trying to talk to aliens. There's a bunch of like scientists or astronomers or something up on a roof, Tokyo, late at night. It looks like Tokyo. I mean, I'm just guessing. I don't know, but they're looking up at the night sky, and it looks like they're trying to communicate with aliens or something. Naoko, the reporter, is there trying to get some info for her show, but she doesn't really believe in aliens. But things are really weird. The reason why they think that something is going on with aliens and UFOs is because even though like the translation made it sound like they had already made contact, I don't think they ever like do make any contact. I don't think you actually see any aliens in this movie outside of a storyline that goes with the princess that we're about to get to. So it was kind of interesting. I don't know if there was an issue with the translation there or not. It sounded like they had already possibly made contact with aliens. But the reason why they are trying to speak to the aliens is because they're convinced that something is wrong with the Earth. Because even though it is the middle of winter, there is a heat wave. And, you know, they show the night sky, and there's just like meteors falling everywhere in the night sky. And like, basically like just the planet and the environment and the ecosystem and the temperature and, you know, time, everything feels off. And so they're hoping that maybe aliens can tell them what's going on and prevent some kind of disaster, which ends up kind of being right. So now we get to the princess. So there is a princess whose name I don't have written down. I feel stupid for that. But anyway, there's a small island. I think it's called Selgina. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. They have a princess that is heir to become, I guess, like a queen on the island or something like that. And her life has been threatened. And so she is flying on a plane to escape the island. And Shindo, the cop brother of Naoko, the reporter, is speaking to, I believe, the actor that was formerly Dr. Serizawa about her coming to Japan. And he is assigned to be her bodyguard, to be there when the plane lands and protect her until she's safe. So at that point, we see the princess on the plane with, I guess, her servants or staff or whatever you want to call them. And she's on a plane, and little does she know that the assassins, which is a group of men who seem to be working for like a king or a sultan or something, but it's a group of men, they have already planted a bomb on the plane that she's on. So she's on a plane, there's a bomb on the plane. All of a sudden, there's a flash of white light through one of the windows next to her seat on the plane, and it's like she becomes possessed and a voice tells her to flee. And I shit you not, this woman just goes to the emergency exit of the plane, opens it, and just walks out. She just like casually just they don't show it. They just show her walk out and fall. They don't show any view from outside the plane, but it's kind of fucking hilarious, honestly. You know, and of course, like, it happens right as one of her, like, servants walks in, and he watches it, and he's like, "Wah!" You know, he's freaking out, and she just walks out. She just walks out, and then they show the outside of the plane a couple seconds later, and sure enough, it just explodes into 1,000 different pieces. So that happened. We cut to then one of the meteors from the meteor shower lands in one of the mountains in Japan. I believe it might be Mount Aso or Mount Aso. I'm gonna say Aso because Aso sounds hilarious, but I think Mount Aso. But anyway, one of the meteors ends up landing in the mountain. This ends up being basically an egg that will hatch King Ghidorah later. And this is where the professor, who is one of our other lead characters I mentioned earlier, Professor Morai, and his team, they basically go to investigate it. And the egg is doing all these weird things, like when they get close to it, their compasses stop working, and then, their equipment starts to malfunction, and it has like gravitational pull or electromagnetic pull. It starts to pull magnetic items away from them towards the egg. I actually think it was like done really well. I think they did a really good job with like, I talked earlier about like the build up to showing the monsters and stuff. Even though they showed all of the monsters and stuff in the opening of the movie, I still think they did a really good job introducing the monsters in the film. Because when Ghidorah finally hatches from that egg, it's a badass fucking moment. It really is. And like the way that it's shot and the way that it's built up, and like sparks are going off and like explosions, and then Ghidorah kind of materializes in the air. It's done like kind of fucking excellent. The same thing with Godzilla. They do a fake out with Godzilla. They show a boat, and you pan from this boat to these fish, and you think like you see this motion in the water, so you think Godzilla's about to emerge. It's actually some fish, and then it pans back, and there he is. And it was just such a sick reveal. I'm getting ahead of myself on the plot, but even Rodan's reveal, was excellent at the mountain as well. So I think the monster reveals were all done really, really good. Mothra's was kind of meh because it's just the twins talking about her, but whatever. So anyway, you have the science team with the professor investigating the egg. The outdoor shots on the side of the mountain, by the way, while they're traveling to go see this egg, were beautiful. Like, it made me want to be there. So I just made a note of that because I thought that the countryside that they showed in Japan looked so gorgeous. I really liked a lot of the cinematography in this. Let's see. Okay, so this is when our princess reemerges. So she has walked off the plane earlier in the movie, and she's disappeared. Now all of a sudden she reemerges in a fisherman's plain clothes. She's just got a hat on and like a dirty brown coat and some trousers, and her hair's tucked up in her hat. But it's clearly still the princess, and she's got a completely new, like, zombified personality. Like, she's talking like this, and you have to believe me, and like stuff like that. And she's clearly like possessed or something. Anyway, she is now reintroduced as like this prophet character. So she starts showing up around Japan, basically warning people like, hey, something bad is coming. And, people are making fun of her. People don't believe her, but she's constantly right. She shows up at the mountain and tells everybody, you need to get away from the mountain. Rodan's going to appear. And they're like, what? Like, you're crazy. Then Rodan appears. And then she says, don't get on this boat. And then, people sail on the boat anyway. Nobody listens to her, but she's right every time she predicts something. So it's clear, and she says that she's from Venus, that she's a being from Venus. And she's here to give a warning to the people of Earth, to try to save them because King Ghidorah is going to destroy them, basically. And nobody believes her at first, and everybody thinks she's crazy. And she just kind of randomly pops up, disappears, pops up, disappears. And at the same time, the people that, assassinated her on the plane, that put the bomb on the plane, when they see like news articles that are being printed about this princess, they're like, oh, what the fuck? How is she still alive? We got to go kill her. So now they're on their way to Japan to finish the job. So it's kind of heating up, you know what I mean? And I think that the build up through the movie for like both the plot and getting to the monsters was really good. But I could also completely understand how somebody would be frustrated because you really don't get the good monster action until the end. Now, I was pretty entertained throughout because, what is there with, her just walking out of a plane and some other stuff going on. And then you got the twins from Infant Island. It's ridiculous and it's entertaining to me. But if you're one of those people, you're like, I'm just here for the monsters, I could see you not enjoying this because it does take a long time to get there. But I enjoyed that ride, me personally. So anyway, what else do I want to go over? Okay, so Mothra. Mothra is the first monster that we are introduced to. The twins appear again on a TV show for kids, I think, where kids get to ask them about Mothra. We find out that one of the in Mothra versus Godzilla, the previous movie, there were two larvae. So basically two of these caterpillars. One of them has died. So we have an off-screen monster death, tragic. One of the Mothra caterpillars has died. One is still alive. It's still a caterpillar. It is not like transformed into a butterfly, which as a kid I just kind of accepted, but as an adult I was like, really? It's still like looks like poo. Like, it still looks like a crawling giant turd. It's funny, but like when you look at it, when you look at the prop they used for the caterpillar version of Mothra, you tell me. But again, they had to shoot these movies back to back. They had to do it like really fast. They had, not an above average budget. So they had to hit it and then send it out. I respect it. I get it. So that's the update on Mothra, and the twins are on the island. They do the TV show, and then they're going to leave. This really got me. You know what? I'm gonna wait. I'm actually gonna try to just follow the plot because we're gonna get to it soon. Because there's a hilarious scene with the twins when they're leaving. So anyway, our princess, she shows up at the volcano, Mount Aso. I'm gonna say Mount Aso. She shows up at Mount Aso, which is a volcanic mountain, and she tells everyone to leave because Rodan's gonna emerge. And they do this really cool thing, which, by the way, that means earlier I was wrong. The egg landed in the mountains, but it's not this mountain. They just landed in some general like mountainous area in Japan. Mount Aso is where Rodan is. So he is sleeping in the mountain. They did this really cool scene that I remember a lot from when I was a little kid, because I think the reason why I remember this scene so well is because of the tension. The prophet shows up, the princess, she's still saying, she's from Venus. She's warning people, stay away. You have to get away from the mountain. Rodan's going to emerge. Nobody really believes her. A gust of wind comes and blows a guy's hat off, and his hat goes down into like the crater, basically, like down into like the crater of this mountain. I don't actually know if it's like volcanically active at the time. It looks that way, but I don't actually think that it's probably not. But anyway, there's steam and stuff, but there's no, like, you don't see lava and stuff. Anyway, his hat blows down kind of into the crater of the mountain, and he, his wife is like, I got you that as a gift. And he's like, fuck, And so this guy, who I think he's actually the comic relief guy from possibly Godzilla Raids Again. And he might have also been a comic relief guy in Mothra versus Godzilla. I'm not 100% sure, but I know I've seen him before. He says, I'll go down there. You give me like 200 yen. I'll go down there and get your hat. And so there's this tense moment where he's going down into the mountain. He's going down the cliffside on the side of the mountain to try to get the hat. And you see Rodan's claws sticking out at the bottom near him. And then sure enough, Rodan emerges, and there's a rock slide, and, the man's, probably killed. Which, by the way, I thought this was funny for two reasons. When the guy, I don't know how he got down the mountain, because it's not like there was like a lot of like shrubs or vines. There wasn't a ladder. He goes way down this hill into like this crater. And when Rodan starts to emerge, he's like, oh, I got to get out of here. But brother, it's just rocks. Like, he's not, like, he had no way. I don't know what his plan was, man. He must have just really needed 200 yen. And my understanding is that 200 yen is not a lot of money. So maybe it was in 1964, but I just feel like he really put himself in a situation. And then when Rodan emerges, it shows the face of the princess, and she's kind of got this like blank, like, and it's because she's still like this Venus, alien version of herself, zombified version of herself. But it also on this like zoom into her face, it also kind of looks like she's just thinking, motherfucker, I just told you, like I can see it there. Maybe I'm projecting, but it made me laugh so hard imagining that being like what she was thinking when she was just having that blank face while Rodan was emerging. So anyway, I noted that I thought they did a really good job showing Rodan's destruction, even though it's obviously a miniature set. Obviously, they couldn't do a lot. They show Rodan emerge. They show Rodan start to fly. Big destruction for, a couple of seconds, and then they cut away. But I thought, again, didn't show much. What they did show, I thought was cool. And around this time, the assassins have arrived in Japan to try to kill the princess. We find out that the egg is getting bigger, and it's, acting strange. And then we cut to, here we go. The twins are about to leave on the boat. So there's a boat, and, it's about to sail off to Infant Island or whatever. And the twins are on the boat saying goodbye to everybody, and suddenly the prophet emerges, almost like a villain, like she's just there, like she just pops up like Jason Voorhees or something. And she's like, you can't get on this boat. You must get off this boat. Don't get on this boat. This boat can't set sail. She's pleading with them, and of course they're laughing at her, and they're like, no, you need to get out of here. And Naoko shows up, and Naoko says, don't worry, I'll get her out of here. Because everybody's looking for her. Naoko wants to interview her for her show. The cops are looking for her because, obviously they're like, I think this could be the princess. So, and then the assassins are looking for her. So everybody's looking for her. Naoko gets to her first, and Naoko's like, I'll get her out of here. And she does. And, it briefly cuts to the twins who look at each other, and they're like, and they kind of start to hustle off to the side, and then it cuts away. Okay. So I want you to keep in mind, that's what happens. Let me see what happens next. Give me 1 second. Okay, so they cut away from that. They cut to the police station where the brother has found the princess's bracelet. There's a bracelet that the princess of that island always wore on her right arm, but she didn't have it when they found her, or since she's appeared as the prophet, she doesn't wear her bracelet or whatever. They found her bracelet, so they're going to use this to identify her. They talked to a fisherman who says he found her adrift at sea, and she traded him the bracelet for some trousers and a shirt and a hat, and then she just disappeared when they got to land. So you kind of find out what happened to her after the plane there. Naoko ends up taking the princess to a hotel. I thought it was really funny, something I never noticed as a kid. When she's checking into the hotel with the princess obviously looks like a homeless person. And, you got this kind of young guy, and he's like the I don't know, the service person, or I don't think they'd be called a cashier. I don't know what they're called, honestly. He's the front desk person at the hotel, and he's talking to her. He's like, oh, okay, so you're doing a show or something. She's like, yeah, I do a show, or blah blah blah. And he's like, you must be doing a show on homeless people or something. And she's like, yeah, something like that. And she grabs the princess to pull her out of there, and he gives them the most diabolical side eye ever. It's something I know I never picked up on when I was a kid, but as an adult, that was vicious side eye. That was like Godzilla's atomic breath level of side eye that he was giving them as they were going into the hotel. I thought that was hilarious. She gets her into the hotel, gets her up to a room. You find out that the assassins are also at that same hotel. I don't know how the fuck they got there, or how they knew, or it's just it. It's a Godzilla movie, and that doesn't mean that that's not an excuse to have shitty writing or anything like that. But I just realized something. I need to kind of go back. Way back to the beginning of this video, because I just caught something. When I was talking earlier about the rating being 59% for audiences here, and I was kind of surprised considering I thought this was a pretty good movie. This is for Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. So I think this is the American version. I don't know if the 125 minutes, the version I watched was not 125, but an hour and 25 minutes. The version I watched was an hour and 32, an hour and 33. So I wonder if this, I don't know if the American version has a different cut or a different edit. So I'm kind of curious if that has anything to do with the ratings here. Anyway, I just noticed that, so sorry. Anyway. So the assassins are at the hotel, and then, the Naoko is at the hotel. She gets the princess into a room. The assassins see Naoko take the princess into a room, so they're like, oh, she's in that room. They're in the room, and then the princess is like, I can sense somebody else here, and it's the fucking twins. The twins are in the room. This was fucking awesome to me. Sorry, I've been sick for like 2 weeks. This was awesome to me. The twins, like, Naoko recognizes the twins from the boat scene earlier, and she's like, oh, I thought you were going back to Infant Island. And the twins are like, oh, no, we got off the boat because when she gave her warning, we understood what she meant. And then it cuts to the ship at night in the water. This is the scene I was talking about earlier where they do the fake out. You see these fish creating a disturbance in the water. You think it's Godzilla, but it's actually like some large tuna or something. And then there's a cut back, and there's Godzilla emerging. It was an awesome scene. And then Godzilla blasts the ship and kills everybody on board. And I just wanted to laugh so hard because I'm sitting here thinking, like, you knew that she was telling the truth on the boat, and you didn't warn anybody. You didn't defend her when everybody called her crazy and kicked her off the boat. You just saved your own lives and let everybody else die, bro. They didn't warn anybody. And that just really had me, man. You know, that just sent me, dude. I could not believe it. I was like, they're trying to portray them as like they're smart and they get it and they're in tune, and they knew they're wise and they knew to get off the boat. Why the fuck couldn't they tell? At least try to save somebody. Keep in mind that they were on a TV show in Japan earlier. They were there filming a fucking TV show for some reason. So they're celebrities. They're celebrities in Japan. If they would have said like, hey, like, she's telling the truth, don't get on this boat, people might have listened. But instead, they all just died. And word, I guess. So that was great. Anyway, speaking of Godzilla using his breath, blue breath again, blue plates, but better. I think it's a little bit better than Mothra versus Godzilla. I think the breath is a little bit more. It's just slightly, maybe slightly moved away from that mist a little bit more towards a beam. Although later in the Rodan fight, for some reason, his breath goes back to a mist when he's shooting Rodan with it. Which, by the way, Rodan just tanks it, which I thought was sick. Naoko leaves the princess alone because her brother shows up downstairs, and she's like, oh, I don't want him to, come and, steal the princess. I want to use her for my show or whatever. So she goes downstairs, leaves the princess alone. Of course, this is when the assassins are like, oh, okay, we're going to kill her now. So they go in to kill her. They confront her. And I thought this was funny too, because they just like walk in there. They pick the lock and they walk in there. And they confront her to kill her. And, like, she had no idea they were there. Even though, like, keep in mind, when Naoko was taking her to the hotel room and the assassins saw her, she made eye contact with them. But because she's, like, in her alter ego or alien consciousness or whatever, she didn't recognize them. But she made eye contact with them. And she's in the room. She said with Naoko, she was like, I can sense that someone else is here. And she was talking about... the Infant Island twins. Why couldn't she sense the assassins? Like, I don't know why she couldn't sense them, or that danger. It's just something I thought that was funny. They confront her, try to get her to confess that she's the princess. She keeps saying that she's from Venus. She doesn't know who they are. So, the main assassin, the main bad guy, he's like, well, I'll remind her who she is, like, stand her up. So she's in a chair. It's 4 guys, by the way. So 2 of them stand her up. The 4th guy is standing behind her. And then the main bad guy, he pulls out this tiny little, like, knife. And it's like this, like a knife that you would find in your kitchen, like to cut potatoes with or something. Anyway, he pulls this little dagger out, this little knife. And he's like, this is the knife I killed your father with, And it's just, it is what it is. And let me see. I can't remember if it was the twins. I think the twins save her in this moment by cutting off the light in the room. So they're about to kill her. the twins cut the light off in the room, and then just as the twins do that, the brother and the sister arrive. The brother and the sister go to walk in. It turns into a shootout. He tells his sister, like, hit the fire alarm. There's assassins here. Hit the fire alarm. She starts hitting a fire alarm. Are fire alarms were fire alarms in 1960s Japan silent, because it made no noise at all? So I thought that was weird. No lights, no noise, no nothing. Even though it showed her like using her shoe to hit this fire alarm, I thought that was funny. They have this like really dramatic shootout. For some reason, even though the assassins have so many opportunities to kill the princess, they don't do it, and they end up bailing and leaving. Like they run out through a window in the hotel room, and they leave her behind. They don't take her as a hostage, which is what I thought they did. They left her behind, didn't kill her. I was just like, wow, that's convenient. So they escape. Then we cut to Godzilla appearing in the harbor. Rodan appears as well. I thought this was a really awesome shot in the movie. Godzilla's arriving in the harbor. He's arriving to mainland Japan, and he looks up at the sky, and he can hear Rodan, but he can't see Rodan. Like, Rodan's high above the clouds, but he can hear Rodan and sense Rodan. So there's this really cool, like, drawn out scene where he's like just looking, and his eyes are like looking all around, because he's got a new head in this film. He looks fine, by the way. His plates look a little bit bigger, but I think the body is actually the same body from the Mothra versus Godzilla film. I think only the head is replaced. At least that's what I read. But I thought that his suit looked good, and the plates looked good. Anyway, he's looking up, and his eyes are darting around, and he's just like, motherfucker, I know you're there. Like, where the fuck are you? And it was just like, there's a lot of like personification of the monsters in this film, and it's one of the first times you really see a lot of this. We've had like some of it before in previous films. And I remember in King Kong versus Godzilla and Mothra versus Godzilla, there's a lot more of like Godzilla kind of being like, a bit of a dumb animal, or even having like some dumb puppy energy, almost dumb dog kind of thing going on. I don't really mean that as an insult. It's just like animalistic intelligence, you might say. Here we get a little bit more personification, but I think it's done pretty well. I thought this was a really good scene, and Rodan does appear. And they cut away. So they cut away. Now our main characters have taken the princess to a psychiatric hospital. So they've taken her to a psychiatric hospital to get evaluated by a doctor. So the doctor, questions her and talks to her, examines her. The doctor says she's normal. Like, he can't find anything wrong with her. And she reveals that, she says, she's from Venus. King Ghidorah destroyed our civilization. We came here 5,000 years ago. And, we assimilated with humans. And, I guess, like, as they bred with humans, they became less and less powerful as they had children with human over the 5,000 year period, which, like, now I just can't help but, like, think about my mother, because, like, I don't know if any of you guys have family members that are into just some, like, off the wall, wild conspiracy theories. My mother is. My mother loves it. She loves talking about, ancient aliens and the giants and other races and the reptilian overlords and the Illuminati and all of it, brother. And I tell you, I'm in New York, and I'm from North Carolina. My mother's still in North Carolina, and every time I get to go to North Carolina and visit my mother and we have dinner together, I honestly, like, I think for some people it would annoy them and, like, turn them off. They'd be, like, really frustrated. Bro, I ask her, I prompt it. I really do, because it's just never a boring moment. It's just some of the most fun, interesting conversations you can have. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, when she's saying all this about, as we bred with humans over time, and, we started to lose our powers and our strength, and we started to blend in with humans, I just, like, started, like, oh God, like, my mom would be like, see? Anyway, anyway, but she says that they still retain the ability. The only ability that some of them retained was the ability to see the future. I don't really think there's ever like a very clear explanation for why she suddenly switched consciousness, like switched from her human identity to her alien identity from Venus. And, later she switches back when she has a head injury. So that's what they use. They say that she was shot in the head, but I don't, I'm not sure. Like, I need to rewatch it because I'm like, she was shot in the head. We'll get to that later. But anyway, so, she says Godzilla, King Ghidorah destroyed Venus, and now King Ghidorah is going to destroy Earth. And I'm sitting here wondering, are there any other, like, of you left, or are you the only one? But she says that she says we just want to warn. I think that was her language. Like, I honestly would need to go back and listen, but I think she says we. So I feel like she was referring to them still being here or them still being somewhere, but that's never explored in the film. We have a brief fight scene with Godzilla and Rodan. It's very brief. Rodan flies at him, knocks him down one time. Godzilla's like, basically like, you son of a bitch. And then we cut to the egg. It hatches. I already said it's like a sick scene. It's very horror coded. It's like, it is like a little bit horrific in its presentation. And then Ghidorah emerges. We cut to the government. The government's talking about the monsters, and they basically say, we got nothing. We got like no motherfucking plans. We don't know what to do. We're just gonna do our best. My man says we're not gonna use nuclear weapon, and God's will be done. And I was like, damn, that's a line. We cut back to Godzilla and Rodan fighting. Godzilla hits Rodan finally with his atomic breath right in the face, and Rodan just tanks it, which I was like, wow, I got some respect for Rodan. He totally tanks it, and then he starts pecking Godzilla on the head, which is kind of like a silly but really fun scene where, he just starts like pecking, like hitting Godzilla right on his head, and like Godzilla just seems to get knocked silly and be super annoyed, and it's just like, the fuck are you, like, it's such a funny scene, and I just imagine that they just did not have time to like really choreograph or like really set up intricate like fight scenes, so you don't get a whole lot. But yeah, he tanks the breath, and then he's pecking Godzilla on the head, hitting Godzilla on the head, like knocks him a little bit silly. Let's see what else. We cut back to the government. They're still arguing about what to do. The twins show up, and the twins suggest that, hey, the only way that this is going to work is if Godzilla, Rodan, and Mothra team up to fight King Ghidorah. That's our only chance. We cut back to the hospital. They have the princess now under anesthesia. That's where she talks about, more about Venus and, like, gives her whole lore backstory. And the doctor's like, well, the only thing we got left is shock treatment. So now they want to give her shock treatment. Okay, cool. By the way, this shock treatment is fucking hilarious. They immediately hook her up to like one of those little, electrocution headset things. And the doctor tells the cop brother, I think Shindo, which, by the way, why wouldn't the doctor do this himself? But he instructs him to go into the other room and turn the voltage up to 500, but not any bit over 500. Can't go any higher than 500 or it'll kill her. I'm immediately laughing because I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, one, why are we doing shock treatment? Like that just feels extreme, especially when you've said there's nothing wrong with her. But then two, like, why would you have the not medical person set the voltage? That feels like really like reckless. And then three, the starting voltage that you're going to use for the electrotherapy is max voltage. Like if we go up to 501, she dies. So the starting therapy electrocution voltage is the maximum we can fucking shock this bitch without killing her. Dude, at this point, I was kind of rolling on the couch. Like, I could not believe how absurd it was. I was like, brother, like... So anyway, I just wanted to share with you how absurd I thought that was. Of course, the assassins show up again. They've found their location through an earlier scene. So they show up at the psychiatric hospital. They've broken in, you know, they find a way in. They see Shindo set the voltage to 500, and of course they're like, oh, we're going to fry this bitch. So they go up and turn it up to like 5,000 or 3,000 or something. They turn it all the way to the max. So they're about to kill her, and they're about to do it without getting their hands dirty. We cut back to Godzilla and Rodan fighting. I'm going to be honest with you. At this point, Rodan is just straight up beating Godzilla's ass. I genuinely thought this was cool because, like, Rodan's another character like Mothra that I always kind of struggled to get into or take seriously in terms of fights. Like, I like Rodan and I like Mothra as monsters. They're cool, but, you know, I just never really got into them as like fighters or as, you know, kaiju that, you know, fight other monsters or anything like that, because I'm used to Godzilla, who, you know, he has his tail, his teeth, his claws, his breath, all this other stuff. And, you know, these two just fly around, and, you know, they have other stuff. Like, we know that, you know, Mothra has her pollen, and, the Pooh version only has the silk. So, you know, but, you know, and then Rodan can do a lot of damage with its wings. Like, I know that, but I just I just always struggled to get into their fight scenes, at least in the early films. And I'm looking forward to getting more into later films to see, like, what they do different or how they spice it up, because it's not like I remember every detail either. But in the earlier films, I struggled with it. But here, like, Rodan is, like, serving Godzilla, kind of beating his ass, which I thought was good. I thought was like, hey, you're making Rodan look really strong right now. Obviously, we already know how strong Godzilla is. I think this is good. Rodan even picks Godzilla up. This is, I think, the first time we ever see this in a film. I don't think Mothra ever picked Godzilla up. I don't think. But Rodan picks Godzilla up and starts carrying him off. And then, like, I'm telling you, the director, Ishiro Honda, right? The team knew what the fuck they were doing with this scene, because Rodan, like, okay, so the princess, right? She's about to die when they turn on the power and electrocute her, because the assassins turned up the voltage all the way. Right as that's about to happen, Rodan drops Godzilla dick first, like crotch first, onto like a huge power line tower. Like a huge power line tire, crotch first. And it's just like, it's awesome, but it's like, you knew what you were, I know you knew what you were doing, because they do it again later. King Ghidorah shoots Godzilla right in the crotch and then right in his ass later too. So they definitely know what they're doing, and they're having fun with it. But yeah, Rodan drops him from the sky, crotch first, down onto an electrical, like, power line tower, destroys that ends up saving the princess. We have another shootout at the hospital, and let's see, they have a shootout. The assassins retreat again, and when the assassins retreat, Shindo ends up chasing them. And he's chasing them, which I don't know why, because they all still have guns. They've retreated, but, like, it's like 4 of them, and they all have guns. Shindo chases them with his gun, 1v4. I don't know why they didn't just all stop running and turn around and shoot him, but he's chasing them and he's shooting them. And dead ass, like, mid gunfight, Naoko has arrived with the twins and just casually walks up to him carrying the twins in a box and is like, hey! And, like, I can't even remember what she said, but I was just like, what the fuck? Like, he literally just got off, like, 3 shots at them. They're running away, but, like, there is a gunfight happening, and she just walks up in the middle of it. Like, as the last shot goes off, she's coming into the scene. Anyway, I thought that was funny too. I liked it. I mean, it's ridiculous, but it's just kind of like, I think these films can just get away with some like really over the top shit because of the nature of the film itself, you know? Like, it doesn't really break immersion. It just makes you go, what the fuck, you know? But it ends up being something that you can kind of look back on and enjoy. So it's not like me. I don't want you to think I'm like trying to super criticize the film, but it was funny. It was just funny. She casually walked up in the middle of a gunfight with the twins in a box to talk to her brother. We cut back to the monsters immediately. Godzilla's finally getting some hits in, and he fucking gets some hits in. He finally like grabs Rodan and just like suplexes him, like body slams him, and then starts hitting him with his tail. And I'm not gonna lie, it gets a little bit weird with the camera angles here because Godzilla like bends like onto a fucking mountain and then starts like hitting Rodan with his tail. And if you know, however you probably felt just watching me like kind of try to show you the position, it's way worse. It's way worse when you watch it. And the facial expressions that they are able to make in this scene when Godzilla is like bouncing his tail on Rodan, and then Rodan gets up and bites him in the tail, and Godzilla's like bent over and grabbing the mountain and just like, ah. And then like you see like the shot is like you're looking at me. The shot is like you're watching Godzilla go, ah. And then right behind here is like Rodan, like, ah, like right behind. It's peak. I don't know what else to tell you. I don't know what else to tell you. It's you know, I may have misused the word iconic earlier because that was iconic. That is definitely a scene I will never fucking forget. Seeing it as an adult, I guarantee you I saw it differently, you know, as an adult than I saw it when I was a kid. But anyway, so they're fighting, and they're brawling. Rodan starts blowing Godzilla away with his wings. Godzilla, while he's getting blown away, swings his tail, hits a rock, and hits Rodan with a rock. I thought that was a really just cool move, because Godzilla's getting blown away, you know, by Rodan's like wing attack, and just the you know, just the intelligence and the fight IQ or whatever you want to say, to like spin, hit the rock, hit Rodan with it. Rodan starts flapping his wings. Thought it was really cool. Then Mothra arrives, and this scene is fucking hilarious. So Mothra arrives, and Godzilla and Rodan are fighting, and Mothra's job is to convince them to stop fighting and team up so we can go, you know, save the world from King Ghidorah. And Mothra rolls up, you know, kind of literally just crawls up, and they're fighting each other, and then they're like throwing rocks at each other, and then they start like punching the rocks at each other. Like Rodan hits it with his head, Godzilla punches it, and it's just like they're playing tennis. And Mothra is like, you know, because Mothra's crawling down, Mothra's looking up at him. Mothra looks over at Godzilla and starts like making noises at Godzilla. Godzilla's completely ignoring Mothra. Mothra looks over at Rodan like, hey, like, you know, hello, like starts like, you know, I don't know what you call that shrieking noise. Rodan's completely ignoring Mothra. So they both just ignore her, and she can't get their fucking attention because, you know, dudes are fucking sitting here like having a dick measuring contest. Fucking, they're on the Xbox 360 right now playing Black Ops, and she's like trying to get someone's attention, and she can't get them off the controllers, and maybe that's a personal story. Anyway, so she starts using her little silk attack and shoots both of them in the face, and they're both like, ah, bitch, what the fuck? Like, why'd you do that? And so then Godzilla literally, this was crazy too, he literally just sits down on a rock. He's like, bitch, like, I can't believe you hit me with this shit again. And so he just sits down on a rock. And then Rodan's like, oh, Rodan can't even wipe his fucking face, which is tragic. So Rodan's just like, ah, what the fuck? And so then, you know, Mothra starts talking to them, and basically what the film does is it has the twins kind of translate the conversation for you. Now, I could see this turning some people off. I thought it was cool the way it was done. I know in one of the later films, there's like some kind of weird way they make Godzilla talk. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to like that when I get there, but we'll deal with that when I get there. But they have the twins translating, and basically Mothra's like, we have to save the world, we need to forgive the humans, and Godzilla and Rodan are both like, nah, like it ain't they straight up say it's not our business, like we don't really care. And then Mothra says, well, it's not just their planet, it's our planet, we have to defend it. And one of the moments that I thought was really funny was Godzilla. One of the lines. This is the translation they give in the film. Godzilla literally says, like, he doesn't want to help humans. Besides, humans always bully us. And I just thought that was kind of a hilarious thought, like, because I just want you to imagine Godzilla sitting on a rock and saying, like, man, these humans, they just bully me, bro. They're so mean to me. Even though, like, I mean, technically in these first, like, 4 or 5 films, he's just kind of, like, shown up and, like, mass murdered hundreds of thousands of people, like, unprovoked. But he's like, nah, man, they bully me, bro. I don't want to help them. And so I thought that was hilarious. And then Mothra says, okay, well, fine, I'll just fight him on my own. So Mothra just, and I thought this was done really well too, because I remember thinking, like, I think it would kind of be lame if they just listened to Mothra. So that's not what they do. What they do here is they have Mothra say, okay, well, fine, I'll just go fight King Ghidorah myself, which we all know how that's about to go. So Mothra goes to fight King Ghidorah by herself, and King Ghidorah just starts, like, immediately hitting Mothra with its like breath attacks, which I've always thought King Ghidorah, by the way, and I haven't even talked about King Ghidorah really. This is one of my favorite monsters. Obviously this is an iconic Godzilla villain to a lot of people. This is the Godzilla villain. This is still like the number one enemy for Godzilla to a lot of people. I don't know if I feel that way. I kind of understand why people do. I completely understand why people do. I think that, I would like to watch more movies before I decide. I've always been more partial to Gigan, but I also understand that my understanding at least is that Gigan was in less movies and probably in movies that weren't quite as good. So, I always really liked Gigan. Obviously, I really love Mechagodzilla. I really like Space Godzilla. Space Godzilla is one of my favorite monsters. Apparently, that movie's awful. I think the last time I saw it, I was like 17 or 16 or something. I don't fucking know. I might have been closer to 20, but that was decades ago for me now. So either way, I was a kid when I watched it, and I liked it. It was one of my favorite movies. I'll be interested to see what I think of it now. But as far as King Ghidorah goes, I always thought King Ghidorah was really cool. I always hated that King Ghidorah didn't have any arms. But King Ghidorah, the 3 heads, this kind of like screeching noise that it makes, and then its lightning breath attacks, super awesome. Very intimidating monster. And I think they made King Ghidorah look very strong in this film, where King Ghidorah does end up fighting Godzilla, Rodan, and Mothra, and gives them a run for their money, and like all 3 of them are having to bust their ass to beat King Ghidorah. So I think they made King Ghidorah look very, very strong. They also chose to not kill King Ghidorah at the end of this film. They let King Ghidorah escape, which I think was a smart decision, because I think you have a really unique, really strong monster that you're going to want to bring back. So I thought that was smart. But to start the fight, Mothra and goes to fight King Ghidorah. That little silk shooting shit is not going to work. King Ghidorah starts like roasting Mothra literally. And so Godzilla and Rodan are like, all right. And so they run down there to help. And you have like the big fight between them in the last like 15 minutes of the film. I really like it. I think it's not long, but I think it's really good. Pause. And overall, I was really happy with it. I was happy with the scenes that we got. Let me see if I made any specific notes here. I do know that during the fight and stuff, the assassins that had ran away from the second gunfight, they're trying to escape in a car, and they end up getting killed by King Ghidorah, causing a mountain slide that kills them all in their car. And then you have like the main assassin. He's the only one that survives. He gets out with a rifle. I don't know why he had a rifle in the car, but he has like a sniper rifle, and he starts like running through the mountain, and he ends up running into the princess who is with Shindo, and they have a shootout across a mountain. Ghidorah ends up killing him too. During the shootout, he ends up shooting Shindo in the arm, and he also shoots at her head, the princess's head, and it looks like the bullet goes and hits the mountain behind her. But later in the movie, they say like the reason she got her human personality back is because the bullet hit her here, and the head injury. I don't know. I probably should have rewatched that, but I had, I stopped the movie so many times to make these notes. I just didn't feel like stopping it again. I'm sorry. But I thought that the monster fight was really, really good, and they made King Ghidorah look really, really strong. I thought that, in fact, one of the ways that they make King Ghidorah look really strong, the first interaction ever between King Ghidorah and Godzilla, comes running up to help Mothra, and he runs up to King Ghidorah, and he like jumps to grab King Ghidorah like by all three of his heads, and King Ghidorah's like, get off me, and basically shrugs Godzilla off and sends him flying like up into the air and down through a bridge, and it's just a sick scene. It's awesome. So I thought that was really cool. Rodan and Ghidorah have a chase scene, which is really cool. Rodan takes off, and Ghidorah can fly. So this is the first time I think we have two monsters in the air fighting and chasing each other. And there's this really cool collision scene with Rodan and King Ghidorah. King Ghidorah's chasing Rodan. Rodan circles around, and then they just head to head, just max speed, hit each other and fall back down to the ground, and it's fucking awesome, dude. Like, it's so fucking cool. I thought it was a really good scene, and I really liked that. I didn't remember that at all. Let's see. Then of course, while they're fighting, and basically you have Mothra and King Ghidorah's in the middle facing Godzilla. And then behind King Ghidorah is, Mothra and Rodan. And Ghidorah's fighting all of them. And they do this funny scene where Ghidorah shoots Godzilla with Ghidorah's breath and hits Godzilla in the throat, and then goes down, down, down and hits Godzilla in the crotch. And then, knocks Godzilla down. And then, I swear to God, I think the actor just tripped and they left it in the movie, because Godzilla goes to get up after falling down, fighting King Ghidorah. He goes to get up immediately and just trips and runs forward 3 steps and falls flat on his face again for no reason. I didn't see anything happen to cause him to fall. He just gets up, stumbles, runs forward, and falls again. It really just looked like the actor tripped and they left it in the film. Fucking awesome. No notes. They do this really cool thing. And then, of course, King Ghidorah shoots Godzilla right in the fucking butthole. So, I just can't help but feel like they were, they had just filmed Mothra versus Godzilla. They're back in the studio, on the tightest schedule ever immediately to shoot this film. And I just feel like these guys were like, well, fuck it. They were probably having a couple of drinks and what kind of crazy fun, what kind of fun shit can we do? What can we do to make this fun? And it just feels like a fun movie. Anyway, I mean, even the plot with the girl, being possessed by her alien consciousness and being the prophet, and this stuff with these assassins trying to kill her and all this stuff, and it's never fully resolved at all. She ends up going back home at the end of the movie. Why? The king or whoever is just going to hire more people to kill you, but that's what they do. They just don't resolve it and just send her back. They tease this possible love thing, she's thanking Shindo, the cop, for saving her life so many times, because he saved her life 3 times. He saved her in the hotel shootout, he saved her at the hospital shootout, and then he saved her at the mountain shootout, right? And she's thanking him, and he's like, oh, you can remember the first 2, even though that was before you got shot in the head. And she's like, yeah, it's the only thing I remember. You saved me. And it's like this really like touching scene where she's thanking him in front of everybody, and he just says, well, I hope you have a good life. And I was just like, fumble of the century, man. She's a fucking princess. But I know it's a different culture. This is very American coded, that we would totally turn that into a love story and have them get married and have kids or some shit. But I obviously that's not what's going to happen in this film. I totally get it, cultural difference. But in my heart of hearts, like during that scene, like where she was just like thanking him and tearing up about how he saved her, 3 different times, and he's sitting there with his arm in a sling where he got shot. I'm just like, bro, shoot your shot right now. Shoot your shot right now. They don't. It's fine. The end of the fight is really good. Mothra ends up... They do 2 cool things with Mothra, Godzilla, and Mothra, Rodan. When Rodan and Godzilla first run down to help Mothra when Mothra's been getting her ass beat, and when Ghidorah chases off Rodan, Godzilla gives his tail to Mothra to bite, so that Godzilla can drag Mothra up the mountain to get to where Rodan and Ghidorah are fighting, or where they're flying around. That was really cool. He throws her his tail, she bites it, and he pulls her on up the mountain. Super cool, especially knowing that these films are back to back. Because I mean, these 2 were just like fighting almost to the death in the last movie. So I thought that was really cool. And then during the fight scene where King Ghidorah is in the middle and he's surrounded, Mothra crawls up Rodan's wing and gets onto Rodan's back, and Rodan flies up and lets Mothra shoot her silk onto King Ghidorah. And, Godzilla grabs King Ghidorah, and he's holding King Ghidorah so King Ghidorah can't get away, grabs King Ghidorah's tail, and is basically making sure that he's holding King Ghidorah in place so that, Mothra can hit him with the silk. I don't think Godzilla ever hit King Ghidorah with his breath, like not a single time, which I think is kind of funny now that I think about it. I wonder if there was a cut scene, or maybe it happened and I missed it, but I don't think he ever hit like that blue, he used like the mist version on Rodan, but I don't think he ever hit that blue, like, atomic breath attack on King Ghidorah, which I thought was, interesting, that I don't remember that ever being used. But maybe it was briefly while he was getting his ass beat. Maybe he shot it a couple times at King Ghidorah. I don't know. But Mothra ends up covering him in the silk, so this is very similar to the last film. And Godzilla ends up throwing King Ghidorah by the tail off the side of a mountain, but King Ghidorah doesn't fall into the sea and like not reappear like we've seen happen many times before. King Ghidorah actually continues flying because it's just silk and he's not a pussy, and he's not as covered as much as like Godzilla was in the last film. And King Ghidorah flies off, and that's the end of the film. And overall, I have to say I really liked this one, man. I did. I thought the fight scenes were cool. The story was quirky, but it was fun. It was fun, like it was a fun movie. It seemed like it was well shot. It probably, even if it did use some stock footage at times, like I honestly think it was probably to me, a better movie than Mothra versus Godzilla, I think. At least this cut that I saw, it felt less awkward. The cuts didn't feel as like jarring to me. It's just you just don't get as much like monster action. Like I would love to see how many minutes of monster action you get in this film. You know what? I'm just gonna look it up real quick. How many minutes of monsters, I'm gonna say fighting on screen do you get in Mothra versus Godzilla, King Kong versus Godzilla, and Ghidorah the 3-headed monster? I don't know. I don't know if I'll actually be able to get this information or not. We'll see. I'm curious. I'm curious to know if this information is out there. So, in exact official timings aren't commonly documented, which is fair. But based on fan analysis, reviews, scene timings, etc. So these are kind of estimations. For Mothra versus Godzilla, monsters fighting on screen is roughly 8 to 12 minutes. For King Kong versus Godzilla, it's around 6 to 10 minutes. And then Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, you get roughly 7 to 10 minutes in the big multi-monster finale. It says that Godzilla's screen time here is about 8 minutes total, which I don't know if that's true or not, but damn. And yeah, the Japanese version is 93 minutes. The U.S. version is 85 minutes. So I guess there is some different cuts there. Interesting. So yeah, you just don't get as much of the monster battles here, but I was really happy with what I got. Like overall, it's probably like a 7 out of 10. To be fair, it probably is somewhere around a 7 out of 10. But I think that Ghidorah was a really interesting monster, more interesting probably than Mothra or Rodan to me. A great foe for Godzilla. They made Ghidorah look really strong in this film, which I think was very important for his first appearance. Didn't kill him at the end. I thought that was really important. Seeing the monsters work together was really cool. I remember liking that as a kid and thinking that was really fun. I thought it was fun here. We've had these other scenarios, so seeing this felt like such a big movie because you had so many monsters in this, and now I'm just wondering what movie is next. What movie is after Ghidorah? So the next one is Invasion of the Astro Monster, 1965, also known as Monster Zero or Godzilla versus Monster Zero. I remember that. I remember Godzilla versus Monster Zero. That's the version that I saw as a little kid, was Godzilla versus Monster Zero. And this is Ghidorah again. So this is them bringing King Ghidorah back again immediately. Well, here we fucking go. Okay. So this is going to be interesting to see what they do with Ghidorah. And this is in 1965. They were really pumping these out. In fact, this movie comes out December 1965 in Japan. So this is less than this is within a year again. This is less than a full year from the release of the one I just watched. Crazy. So anyway, I'm looking forward to reviewing that and talking to you about that, but I really enjoyed this one, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I'd love to know what you thought of this movie if you watched it, and if you want to see me, just talk endlessly about Godzilla films, then I hope that maybe you'll consider subscribing, and I'll see you soon for, I guess, Invasion of Astro Monster. I don't know which version I have of this film. I try to get as many different versions of the Godzilla films as I can, and I try to always watch the Japanese version with English subtitles, but we'll see. I'll see you when we get there. Take care.